Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the organizers for this invitation to speak in this event, and also to Eric Berger from Enviroart Society, because what you see in the background of my talk is photographs from the last month, which lead up to the workshop that took place the last few days here in Helsinki. And the workshop was a practical accompaniment to a network meeting of bioart individuals, organizations and labs, and it was a practical activity which allowed us to talk about different issues within art science and biocommons. So this will be the background images, but I use this occasion better to tell a little bit about how I work over the years, and what are some of the motivations that create this assemblage of different materials and different types of activities. So it will go in a loop, so see it as a backdrop, and I hope that my speaking will be a pace which connects with some of the things that you see. So I have a background anyway in visual arts and media arts, but in particular I think about it from social and participatory arts. After quite a number of years involving mediated exchange and communications, I got more interested in other topics, such as alternative economics or ecologies, and eventually in cultural heritage. And so I see my practice as an artist as one which is quite often intertwined with research and exploring different ways of working and different ways of communicating, but issues which get beyond the cultural scene. And these have been the inspirations for me over the years. I think of myself as being engaged mostly in process, so it's not often that I'm exhibiting artworks or presenting work in galleries, but I'm very much organizing workshops and contributions in festival or associational context, where process has been the most important thing. And I like to think that through my own learnings, which is often curiosity driven, sometimes within academic context, but as I say, most often in associational ones, the process of learning and following through with curiosities is something that I've extended with others. I've invited others into that curiosity-driven, practice-based research. You could think of it maybe like, I mean, if many of you be aware with the idea of do-it-yourself or do-it-with-others type of learning and making and doing, maybe within hacker or tinkering contexts. But it could be something like research and do it with others. I mean, this sort of combination that you actually invite others into the process of figuring and learning something out. Certainly, as already maybe the images suggest, hybridity between the different types of things you do, the different things you make, and how you learn about it is that type of environment that I consider in hybridness. The other side of it, from being a process, is like in a very simple processual way, what goes in and what comes out. I've been interested in sometimes talk about the idea that there's incomes and outgoings. The idea that there's no obvious direction or not yet known direction to those learning processes, and that especially if it's a participatory process, who or what knowledge or experience is going into that event or that learning is just as important as what sort of knowledge experience is going out, even if you don't have any idea where it's going. Sometimes I say that not knowing something is always a good start for cultural production. The fact that you're not an expert, that you have no idea about a particular material, a particular subject, maybe a particular community or context, is actually the best basis to begin. And that from another piece of sort of cultural production wisdom, that the only ones that matter are the ones that turn up. The most important persons are those who show up and what they bring to the occasion. In some way, this type of curiosity-based practice-led research is enticing, encouraging and supporting curiosities. The workshop that we had in the last few days here was to try to invite others into the same curiosity that I had between a couple of materials and their interactions that I didn't know so much before in the beginning. that having a workshop like this would bring together an assembly or assemblage of various particular skills, materials, perspective, different types of knowledge, artistic, scientific, material, but also many subjectivities, things that get different perspectives and different points of view, which get persons, which can be shared in this social participatory work. Another influence which I've had over the last few years in particular has been one that I've been inspired by from colleagues in Latvia, the interdisciplinary arts group CERDE, which is who are based in Western Latvia, and their particular focus has been in cultural heritage. And a few years ago, actually in the context of Frontiers in Retreat program, they had an event called Cultural Heritage as Resource. And for me in English, this term resource, of course, has connotations of economic relationships and maybe even exploitation or value extraction from an economical point of view. But I saw it from a slightly different perspective, and is based also on the idea that, and I suppose it's a philosophical idea, maybe as an Ernst Blochian idea, that the past is very much folded into the present to help us imagine in a better way the future, a utopian idea, so that we cannot escape the past. It's always mixed up with our present, and from this we can imagine how to do things better and how to act better, etc. In some way, this is about trying to revalue, to take old ideas and old ways of doing things and take artistic processes of adding value to revalue traditional ways of doing things, traditional ideas. Maybe you could be considering pre-modern, pre-industrial traditions, for example recipes, for example handed down technological methods, and find ways to share them anew, especially in our internet society in a way which has open or commons-orientated licenses, so that many people can take that tradition beyond their locality and find new ways to develop it. You could consider then that the resources are materials, services, skills, energy, matter, talent, ability to do things in a certain way. These are all assets to support and produce benefit, not only to individuals and associations that are present, but to find ways to extend that larger, beyond the locality, for communities and municipalities, regions, and wider groups of people. This wider interpretation of cultural heritage as a resource means going beyond the currently well understood terms of tangible and intangible cultural heritage to include and consider the natural heritage, the ecosystems and biodiversity, which is also what we are living among. It means taking into account also the biotic aspects of our environment, the living things that make up the ecosystem, but also that of the abiotic, the non-living factors, such as our weather systems, water, light, soil, stone, but also minerals and metals. It's the interrelationships and interdependencies of these resources that are the conditions for light, and these are the things that we inherit from those who have came before us, and that we maintain, or not, and which we also have to pass on in an appropriate way to those who will follow us in the future. For me, this perspective of cultural heritage, extending it towards environmental subjects, is for me very important. We need to try to deal with this expanded cultural heritage, an environmental focus or natural heritage focus, which includes care and attention. You already may have an idea that the type of things which I am putting together, as can be seen in this picture, is beyond just the urban space, can include the rural environment, but also networks which are transnational. When I have been working and living in the last few years, I've been trying to mix together the rural and urban, but also I spend a lot of time online. But making do with what is around is one of the most important parts of my process, and exploring whatever is a surplus in one's environment, which is in season or in decay, is an important way to try to work with materials. One perspective which I think might be interesting to combine with this type of work is that of natural history, which focuses on human and natural organisms that live in a particular geography or bioregion, and that it's necessary to look at this from a slow or deep perspective over time. A natural historian called Thomas Fleischner spoke about natural history and what it offers. He said natural history is a practice which should be considered to be revived, one which is intentionally focused or is focused attentiveness or receptiveness to more than the human world, and it's guided by honesty and accuracy. It's something that has to last over a long time. The type of work that you see here has been described in the context of kitchen work or ferment lab. These are experiments with everyday life practices, traditions of food culture from various parts of the world, but also how they come together in a particular place. It takes the traditions from kitchen and fermentation, working with bacteria to make and preserve food, as a way to learn and raise awareness about microbiomes and bacteria and human interdependence. It follows somehow a non-human pace of development. The workshop that took place over a couple of days here in Helsinki needed about a month to prepare the materials. In some way, lactobacillus bacteria, which creates the fermentation in the kimchi that you can see here, is a collaborator in slow art. How it reacts with copper, which is the other material that you can see in these photographs, is something which is a byproduct of one of the parts of the process, lactic acid, which makes and ferments vegetable matter, has been the material that they are working with, and what we are doing is collaborating with them. I guess there is a chance still in a moment, but maybe in conversation and discussion, to talk more about what these different processes are involved here. But essentially what you could see here was a group of people working with pre-prepared materials, cabbage, kimchi, which includes chili, garlic, ginger, salt, sugar, which reacts with copper surface to create a new compound, copper lactate, and this is what's turning the matter green. And then what we have done is we have made some, or experimented with some sort of ink process, so that we can use it to draw and explore this as a new medium or a new matter to express at least the materiality and the colors within this interaction. As is a process, it only finished yesterday evening, and we cleaned yesterday evening up. It's still quite fuzzy in my head what to learn from this combination. But I hope you understand from this short talk the motivations or practices that I tried to put together in the workshop. Thank you.